Self-care, the term has gone wildly off the rails.
When I go online, you're bombarded with people's skincare routines and the bubble baths and the things that they're doing at night to take care of themselves.
Wellness has given us methods and tools, but it has not given us principles or perspective. A juice cleanse is not going to fix all of those problems.
But when you think about it from the lens of a psychiatrist, what does self-care mean to you?
When we're talking about real self-care, there's 4 principles: boundaries, compassion, values, and...
Hey, it's your friend Mel. I'm so excited that you are here today. It is always an honor to spend time with you and to be together. If you're brand new, welcome to the Mel Robbins podcast family. I want to just take a quick moment before we jump into this amazing topic about boundaries and acknowledge you for taking time to listen to something that can truly help you create a better life. And I'm going to tell you something. One thing that will help you have a better life is learning how to have better boundaries. Look, I'm sure you've heard the word 1,000 times, and I've even talked about boundaries before. I like to remind you that you can be a good person and have a kind heart and still say absolutely not. Today, you and I are going to come at boundaries from a completely new angle because Dr. Pua Luxman is here in our Boston podcast studios, and she says there are 3 surprising signs that she sees in her patients day in and day out that indicate no boundaries. And she's going to explain exactly what these 3 signs are, why you need boundaries, how your life is going to change, and more importantly, how you can get started in creating them today. In fact, you and I are going to leave this conversation with a very simple exercise. I love this thing because you're going to do it as soon as you're done listening, and it's going to reveal all the moments in the coming week where you do not have a boundary in place, but you need one. Dr. Pua Luxman is a board-certified psychiatrist and the author of the best-selling book, Real Self-Care. She's a professor of psychiatry at George Washington University School of Medicine. And one more thing. Before we stepped into the studio, she said, Mel, after you introduce me, I like to be called Pooja. Not Dr. Pooja, not Dr. Luxman, Pooja. So Pooja, welcome to the Mel Robbins podcast.
It is such an honor to be here, Mel.
I am so thrilled that you're here. And I am very excited to talk to you about your work. And where I want to begin is, could you tell the person that's listening what they can expect to change in their life or experience their life differently if they really take to heart everything that you're about to share?
Yeah. So for folks that are listening, I want you to know that it's possible to make a change, and that feeling of selfishness or guilt that you get each time you set a boundary, that doesn't need to control you. That feeling actually is not the truth of who you are. And you're going to get some skills and tools to take away to really understand how to feel like you have agency in your life.
What does the word agency mean?
So I think of agency as basically the ability to feel like you can solve problems in your life, even when there are external constraints, even when your environment is stacked against you, that you can take action and that action will cause change. That's what agency is. And I think that's power.
I have never heard anybody describe it that way. I'm sitting here with my mouth open for just a second because I hear the word agency a lot, and I've never connected the dots between that word and power. But it is true because there are so many times in your life where you do feel like you're overwhelmed by everything and you have no power. And I know we're going to dig deep into 2 words that you talked about. You feel selfish or guilty.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that that's what you're going to experience is access to this power. Boom. Already.
Yes.
Already. Dr. Luxman is dropping the knowledge. So I saw this article that you wrote where you said that, I want to get the quote correct. You said that real self-care is not about a bubble bath. Can you unpack that for us and talk about how the act of self-care has now become a new form of us shaming ourselves?
So this came to me from my patients, really. The patient that every patient really that comes in and says, Dr. Luxman, I'm stressed out, I'm burnt out, I'm not eating well, I'm not sleeping well. And I feel like it's my fault because I have the meditation app. I have the yoga membership. I know I'm supposed to be doing these things, but I can't do it. And I say to my patients, like, look, this isn't your fault. This isn't about willpower. This isn't about being lazy. It's actually much bigger than that. We live in a country that still doesn't have federally mandated paid parental leave. Half of American workers can't take a paid sick day. Half of American people are living in what's called childcare deserts. The most recent statistic on childcare costs found that for Americans with 2 kids, they are paying 10% of their income for childcare. So I mention all of these numbers not to be like doom and gloom, but more to say wellness has given us methods and tools, but it has not given us principles or perspective. So a juice cleanse is not going to fix all of those problems.
I love that. So you used 2 words, principles and perspectives. What is the deeper perspective about what self-care is versus what the wellness industry is marketing to us? Because it almost feels like, when you mention juice cleanse, and I know when I go online, you're bombarded with people's skincare routines and the bubble baths and the things that they're doing at night to take care of themselves. And it's almost as if the wellness industry or the skincare industry has hijacked the word self-care. But when you think about it from the lens of a psychiatrist, what does self-care mean to you?
So it's actually really interesting. When I was working on the book, I did a little research on the roots of the word self-care. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because there's 2 parallel lineages that came out in like the 1950s, 1960s. One is a social justice movement, Audre Lorde, self-care is self-preservation, but the other actually is psychiatry. So in the 50s and 60s, psychiatrists were using the word self-care to describe the choices that patients who are on locked psychiatric units could make. So like, what do I want to wear today? What am I going to eat for lunch? What exercise am I going to do? So it's, again, coming back to agency, even in the context of having so many of your choices made for you, you can still find small ways. So obviously now in 2024, like self-care, the term has gone wildly off the rails. But let me give you kind of an example for folks listening to kind of get a picture, because I know this sounds a little bit heady. So imagine that you are going to a yoga class and you go to this yoga class and you spend most of the time on the mat kind of feeling guilty because, maybe you're a mom, you should have maybe spent this hour helping your kid with his homework, you need to make cupcakes for school. So you're there in the yoga class, but your mind is feeling all this guilt and this mental load. On top of that, you're looking at the person next to you who can hold a headstand and like you can't even do crow pose. So you're comparing yourself, you're beating yourself up. You also don't really know why you're even at yoga. Like you're there because like Mel told you to go to yoga, but you haven't really internalized like what does yoga do for you? And so essentially you've given away your power. So that's one person, but then imagine a completely different scenario where you have a hard conversation with your partner and you say, hey, look, I think both of us do a lot better when we each have a little bit of alone time over the weekend. So I'm going to go to yoga on Saturday and you can go for your run on Sunday because we both know we're better parents, we're better partners when we have that time. You set boundaries. You are on the mat and you're not beating yourself up. You are actually, connected to yourself in a nice way. And then you've actually named for yourself, what is it about yoga? Like, why does yoga help me? Maybe for you, it's the physicality. You feel strong, you're in your body. Maybe for somebody else, it's actually community. You like being in that room with other people who have the same passion as you. So it's different. You have to name your own value. And through that, you have actually reclaimed your agency from this society, which is telling us, no, don't rest. Don't do anything for yourself. Instead, just keep producing, just do more, be more. So the whole kind of thesis here is that Real self-care is actually, it's not about the thing. It's about all of the work you do inside before you do the thing. So your yoga class is only as powerful as the boundaries that you've set beforehand.
There is so much to unpack. I want to take a gigantic highlighter and I want to make sure as you're listening that you heard what Dr. Pooja just said. She said it's not about the thing. It's about the reason why you are doing the thing in the first place. And if I get back to two of the words that you said earlier, principles and perspective, that's how you access it. And I'm also in that example, which I found crazy relatable. I was thinking, how are you in my head while I'm doing yoga? Because you're right. I race there. I get on that mat. I maybe settle in for 5 seconds after looking around and checking out, like, okay, like, how am I going to size up here? Then it starts. If there's no music, I'm complaining about that in my mind. And then I'm almost immediately thinking about what I'm going to do after the class. And the other thing that I think about in that example is I have probably poured more time and energy into the mat and the towel and the bottle of water and the outfit that I'm wearing than I am about the reason why I do it. And when you go deeper and you tap into the deeper principle of what this is for and why you do it, that's how you access the power of it. And then you also gave that example with your partner, where you say, the reason I do this is not because I'm supposed to, because I see all these other people doing it, and because I'm this or that or the other thing, but because I know the deeper principle. I'm a better person. I'm better for you when I do this. Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to give you something else too, that encompasses this. So real self-care is not a thing to do. It's a way to be. It's a verb. It's not a noun. It's something that you thread through all of the decisions that you make in life, whether it's how you show up to yoga or what job you choose or, who you decide to partner with. Like it really is something that is in the fabric if you're doing it right.
How do you figure out how to be? And I'm sitting here also thinking to myself, okay, I spent a lot of time talking to people, trying to distill their research and advice down to the takeaway and the thing to do. Okay, everybody, we're going to go for a walk and we're going to do this thing. And we're going to blah, 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 blah. And I know you're not saying don't do the thing. You're saying go deeper first and actually understand the way you want to be in life. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. I'm not saying that the things are bad. Yoga actually can be really helpful. Exercise is helpful. There's tons of studies. Sleep is important, right? All these things, but it's about how you show up to those things. If you're not taking the time to reflect and understand how the yoga or the meditation is important in your life and really getting a sense for what it does for you, then you're just checking it off the list. You're not actually taking in the medicine or the nourishment of those activities. And I want to say, for folks that are listening, I don't want you to feel ashamed because we all do this. Like we live in a society where you open Instagram or, TikTok and it's just right. Like it's all the makeup and the yoga and all the things. And it's not, we all do this. We're all in this together. And it's not about shaming yourself. You can't beat yourself into real self-care. And again, it's just that you have to understand that the internal work, has to go along with it beforehand. Otherwise, it's just going to be empty calories. And I mean, if you're like me, yeah, you'll be really great. You'll do it every day for 2 weeks and then life will get busy and then you'll fall off.
I think I just had a whole light bulb moment. So let's go to the example where you said you're online. It happens to all of us. You see a fitness influencer that looks fantastic and they're doing yoga on a mat, beach, and you think to yourself, I really need to be doing that. I need to be taking better care of that. That right there, that I should, I need to, the adding of the thing to the to-do list, that's when it becomes almost like a form of shame. Like you're
Yes.
making yourself wrong in that moment because you're not doing the thing that you think you should be doing. I think that is such a common experience, to see a cleanse, to see somebody doing yoga, to see somebody hiking or doing whatever, and to then go, I should be doing that. And the fact that I haven't made time for that means that I am doing something wrong. Is there something you could do in that moment that truly is self-care, that being part that you're going to teach us today?
Yeah. So that's the boundary, right? That's where boundaries come in.
What is a boundary?
I think that I'm glad that you asked that question, Mel, because I do think we see boundaries everywhere. Like you open any app and everybody is talking about boundaries. So it can be a little bit eye roll. My take on boundaries is different, and we're going to get into that. But essentially, the boundary doesn't always mean saying no. So this was an aha that I had where I kind of came to an understanding. This was I think it was 2016. I just graduated my psychiatry residency at GW, George Washington University in DC. And I got my dream job on the faculty, and I was going to be helping to run the women's mental health clinic, and, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And my advisor, my mentor, she took me out for lunch on my first day. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, Pooja. And I was like, oh, maybe it's about like how to dose SSRIs or, and some secret. And she was like, her advice was, you don't need to answer your office phone. You can let it go to voicemail, listen to what they want, decide, and then respond. And that's when I was like, oh, the boundary is the pause. And then you always have three options: yes, no, or negotiate. Because the truth is that no always comes with a cost, whether that is emotional or financial or political or interpersonal, right? Like no is not accessible for everybody, but the pause, you can always do the pause. So for me, in that example, it was like, okay, sometimes the phone rings and it's the front desk and they just have some insurance paperwork that they need me to sign, and I can call them back and I can say, oh, I'll do it at the end of the day. But sometimes like it's a patient who I know if she misses a day of her Adderall, her ADHD medicine, she will literally get into a car accident. Let me put in that refill right away, right? So you pause and you reflect. So it's about responding as opposed to reacting. And so that's what a boundary means for me. It is that pause. It's to be a little woo-woo about it. It's like the existential space in between.
Why do we need a pause? How does that connect to the fact that we don't take good care of ourselves?
Yeah. In order to actually be able to take care of yourself, you need to really acknowledge that you are a self that needs taking care of. Like that you are actually an embodied person that has your own wants and needs and preferences and desires. And that is something that actually is a little bit radical, shockingly, in our society. And the first step to it, again, is the boundary, because that's the pause, that's the space in between. And when we're talking about real self-care, there's 4 principles: boundaries, compassion, values, and power. The boundaries are the backbone. It's actually what you put in between, and it demarcates your own space. So that's why they're so important. Like if there were one psychological skill for folks to learn when it comes to, doing life, it's boundaries.
I understand in your practice, there are 5 questions that you use as almost like an assessment. You write about it in your book that give you almost a temperature check on where somebody is on this scale of boundaries and power and values. Can you walk us through those 5 questions?
Yes. Do I feel motivated to tackle my tasks, or am I overwhelmed, or am I apathetic? Are there any particular people or situations that are constantly draining me? Do I set aside regular time for rest, or am I always pushing through and gritting my teeth? Do I ever ask for help? And when people offer help, am I able to actually receive it? Am I making time for things that truly matter to me? Not to my kids, not to my partner, not to society, but to me? Or am I constantly caught up in things that don't serve me?
I think I just heard the person who's with us right now slump a little. There were a couple of those, especially the one, do I set aside time for rest? Or am I always pushing through? That really was like ding, 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 ding. What does it tell you as a psychiatrist when someone is answering these questions as a no, I don't feel like I can tackle my tasks, or I'm really drained by situations, or I never rest, or I don't allow people to help me? And I definitely don't make time for things that truly matter to me, not to everyone else. And frankly, I don't even know what matters to me. I'm so busy taking care of everyone else. Like, what does that tell you when you walk somebody through these questions?
The reality is that's all of us. That is all of us. That is all my patients. That is me at various times in my life. I think that we need to understand, again, going back to the fact that we're living in this society together, we are all under these pressures. So of course you're going to feel this way. And when I see this come up in my practice, again, this is everybody, naming it is so powerful, because then we can actually say, okay, what do we do? How do we work on this? I imagine that most folks listening are, they checked off yes for everything. I don't want anybody to panic. I don't want you to freak out. I think that we need to also kind of reframe the conversation on burnout a little bit, because I think that, if you've checked all these things, you might be burnt out, but I think that we kind of treat burnout as like this dreaded, catastrophic thing. But when something is so dreaded, you engage in denial, you engage in avoidance. And then, it takes landing yourself in the hospital or losing your job, getting into a car accident to finally say, oh yeah, I guess I am burnt out. So in reality, I think that we need to understand, like, we're all going to burn out. We all burn out. Like that's just part of the game right now because of the world that we live in. And the whole process of boundaries and real self-care is to recognize it sooner, to recognize it when it's like a little B burnout as opposed to a big B burnout, so that you can start to get back on the wagon, start to get back into your boundaries, right? So you're not reaching that place of, on the floor. I'm saying this because I want folks to understand that there are solutions. This is not incurable. And I walk patients through this all the time. And I will say, if you're somebody who's type A or perfectionistic or workaholic, not that I know anybody like that, you will probably go through this cycle more often because you are constantly sort of moving forward. So I will say for myself, I go through this like every 6 months where I have to kind of like reconfigure and think about my boundaries and relearn how to talk to myself. But there's a silver lining. It gets easier each time. It gets so much easier each time.
How do you define burnout?
I think it's a little bit chicken and egg when it comes to boundaries and burnout, because one of the characteristics of burnout is feeling like your actions have no meaning. Almost like kind of like a cynicism, like you're just going through the motions, but nothing that you do actually really matters or is going to impact anything. And when you don't have boundaries, you also sort of feel like everything's closing in on you. You don't have a choice. You're not actually living your life. Your life is sort of happening to you. So, I think it's tough. I think that, this is one of the things, this is why therapy takes so long, because you have to tease apart all the different pieces, because certainly not having boundaries makes it more likely that you're going to become burnt out. But when you are burnt out, and even little b burnout, your boundaries are usually worse. So it's like this cycle that keeps going.
So what does somebody's life look like if they don't have any boundaries?
Yeah, so there's 3 telltale signs that tell me a patient doesn't have boundaries. The first is that they are angry and irritable all the time, that everybody around them knows that they're kind of like a ticking time bomb, but that the person actually, they just think that they're selfless. They think that they're doing everything for everyone else. So the perfect example is, the mom that stays up all night on Christmas Eve, wrapping all the gifts. And then the next morning is just like a terror and is like, oh my God, like, don't you guys see that this, wrapping paper is like perfect one? And everyone's just like, oh my gosh, like mom has lost her, has lost the plot.
You mean me? Yeah, you mean me. That is me. Like, and you know what I was thinking is, oh my gosh, I have that. I do get angry. I go overboard and I get angry when I don't feel appreciated. And then I feel like a victim. And I have this whole thing where my family takes me for granted and you're not thankful enough, when really I didn't need to buy matching wrapping paper. I didn't need to go overboard and basically drive myself into the ground to make everything perfect. And instead of having a boundary with myself and stopping myself, I then become a victim and get pissed off at my family because they don't appreciate all this stuff that they never even asked me to do in the first place, and they don't even want me to do.
Exactly. And that's the other thing that I see. That's the second sign is expecting everybody else to be constantly grateful and thanking you, when in fact they haven't even asked for any of these things. But you have this underlying assumption and need that people need to be pouring their thanks out to you. And then, you're resentful when you don't get it. But the reality is nobody asked for it. You made that choice. That can be a sign, right? You are expecting other people to constantly be thanking you for all of the things that you're doing for them. The person that doesn't have boundaries is constantly feeling like they are managing their life as opposed to living their life. I see this a lot with my patients who are, all women, mostly moms, right? Like you feel like you're managing your family as opposed to actually being part of your family because you haven't taken the space to, unload some things and actually allow yourself to be present. So another sign is that you constantly fantasize about escape. So whether that is, I just need to go to a retreat for a week. I just need to lay on the beach. I just need to, one of my personal favorites that I've engaged in before is I want to move to like a vegetable farm and just have this very simple life, right? Where I just farm, So the reality is those are escapes, and your mind goes there because you feel so overwhelmed and you feel powerless about actually making decisions and choices in your life.
As I'm listening to you, I'm having this massive realization about boundaries. I've always known that boundaries are not for other people. Boundaries are like my rules for myself. But the mistake that I'm realizing that I made is that I've always made those rules about what I do and don't do with other people. And I've never hit that pause and truly thought about what are the rules that I have for myself that allow me to truly care for myself. And it's a completely different way to look at this topic, and why the pause then becomes essential so that you stop yourself from constantly pouring into everybody else and then running them over when they're not grateful, like I always do, or feeling like the victim or unappreciated. Wow, this is like kind of pulling on a string of a sweater, and now my whole life is unraveling before my eyes, and I realize I have a lot of work to do.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I should be thanking you. I'm happy to do the work to not drive myself crazy and into the ground and make my family, the villains here. So it does beg the question, though. How the heck do you start? I mean, am I going to put my hands on my hips and be like, all right, no wrapping on Christmas presents. You guys are getting them in the grocery bags this year, and you better be grateful. Like, I have a boundary. Like, how do you do this?
Well, don't do that.
Okay.
So you want to start small. And so that means actually not with your family, because your family is actually the hardest. That's like advanced level, setting boundaries with family or in-laws. You want to actually start really, really small.
Why is it hard to set boundaries with family?
Because you have years and years and years of history with family that you have to undo. So, if mom has been folding laundry and putting everyone's, folded laundry in their drawers for the past 30 years, and all of a sudden mom says like, hey guys, I'm not going to do laundry anymore. Like, people are going to have some feelings.
Actually, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So I stopped doing laundry a couple years ago, and our son Oakley, he will admit this, and he will not be like upset at all that I'm about to share it. I don't know if this is like a dyslexic thing, but he does not fold his clothes. He does his own laundry, but he will do the laundry and then it's in big piles and it's kind of thrown into drawers. And the feelings that you're talking about that people have when you stop doing something, it's not just what they have, it's what you have. Because I would walk past his room and see the state that was in, and the feelings that would come up would be like, what the? And I would have to stop myself from going in and folding the clothes and doing the things that I used to do. And so I think it's probably both their feelings that come up when you change and also your feelings that come up.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because this reminds me of two things. You have to let go of control. You have to let the other person do what they're going to do, even if it means a messy underwear drawer and it drives you crazy. You have to let go of control. The other thing is, it's going to take longer. It's going to take longer. People are going to do it their own way. A lot of times we avoid the yes, no, and negotiate because it's just easier to say yes and just do it and get it done. And then you can just move on with your day. But instead, when you stop and you negotiate or you say no, or it's this whole thing, and we kind of trick ourselves into thinking it's not worth it. But the reality is it is worth it, because you're setting new expectations for the future.
For yourself and for them.
Correct.
That I'm not going to get upset about this because my energy is needed elsewhere.
Correct.
Wow. So how do you get started if we're going to start small and not with our family?
So you want to start at really low stakes risks. So very baby risks. So I will tell you, with my patients and even for me, at times it's remedial. It's like, I am going to sit down and eat lunch.
You mean like actually eat, but not stand
Yes.
and eat and work and talk and eat?
And not in front of my computer. Yes, I'm going to sit down at a table and actually eat lunch. I have a patient who is a healthcare worker. And so, as we got to working on these things, we realized she can go an entire 8-hour shift on the wards working and not eat anything and not drink anything, not even have a sip of water. So we start small, like we start really basic, like, okay, every hour you're going to go to the nurse's station and you're going to drink some water. Like, that's where you start. You do not start with your kids and Christmas or your mother-in-law and Thanksgiving. You start by, the drinking water, because those skills, they build on each other. They give you confidence, and then you work your way up.
Well, I could see that. You could set like an alarm on your phone to go off every hour during the workday with a nice little buzz or something. And like, that's your little pause moment. Like,
Yep.
Oh, this is a reminder that I have to have a boundary with work right now so that I can care for myself. Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
How is telling yourself you're going to take a break a boundary? Do you see what I mean? Because I think when you hear boundary, I think fence.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to keep like, it's like I'm doing something in relation to other people.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear you unpack how drinking more water, or the one that popped in my mind is it a boundary to say to myself, on weeknights, I need to be in bed by 9:00? And what does that even mean in the context of how you think about boundaries as a psychiatrist and how we can learn this fundamental skill?
Can I ask you some questions?
Of course.
Tell me more about how you made that limit for yourself.
What limit?
I need to be in bed by 9:00.
Oh,
Like, what led to that? What did you notice that led to you saying that to yourself?
it's a great question, and I'm going to answer it. And I want to invite you, as you're listening, to the questions that Pooja is asking me, to think about the boundary that you need to set and how you would answer these same questions for yourself. And so would you ask that question again?
Yeah. So I want to understand a little bit better why you chose that limit. Why getting in bed at 9 o'clock was something that felt important for your well-being. What was the decision-making process and what was going wrong that led to it?
I know that when I get a great night's sleep, I feel better. I have a better day. I'm a kinder person. It allows me to show up for myself and for my family and for my colleagues at work. And if I don't get in bed by 9 o'clock, what ends up happening is my husband does. And then I tell myself, oh, I'm just going to do a couple things quickly and then I'll be in the bed. And then, like a lot of people, I find that 2 hours goes by and I've either spent it on my phone or I have watched another episode of a series that is not that important, or I have futzed around. And now all of a sudden it's 11 and my husband is sound asleep and I'm thinking, oh, I should have gone to bed. And so now I'm making myself wrong. And then there's another impact because I also feel really good when I get out of bed early and I have enough time to be able to get a full walk in and be able to start my day at a pace that feels nurturing rather than that feels like I've been shoved into a cannon and shot out of it. And so that's the reason. And so if it sort of unravels from there, and the later that I go to bed, the more of an impact it has on the chaos in the morning and the things I don't have time to do that truly take care of me.
Got it. Okay.
That was a long answer.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
that's great. That was great. And for folks that are listening, I want you to be thinking through all of these different steps, and the answer that I give, I want you to try and apply it to the specific situation in your life. So what I'm hearing is the decision to go to bed at 9 is the faux self-care.
The who?
The faux self-care.
Faux? You mean like fake self-care? Are you shaming me, Dr. Pooja? I mean, what is going on here? So there is fake self-care?
Yeah, it's when I say faux, I mean it's the superficial level. The real self-care is actually all of the decisions that you made to get to that place of going to sleep at 9 p.m. Because for another person, their bedtime could be 11. Somebody else, their bedtime could be 7. So the reason that we're putting that label on it is so that everybody knows that their real self-care is going to be different.
Oh, so the bedtime is the thing.
The bedtime is the thing.
And I'm focused on the time I'm going to bed, just like we were talking earlier about focusing on going to the yoga class. And the class and the bedtime is the thing that's superficial, the thing that you have to do, the thing that turns into the shame when you don't do it. But the opportunity for power is to go deeper and to understand what exactly is underneath the thing and the way you're trying to care for yourself by going to yoga or getting in bed by a certain time.
Correct.
So the boundary for me is more about not doing those things that keep me awake and keep me from going to sleep and getting the rest that I need so that I can wake up in the morning and truly set myself up to feel good again. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Because you're right. I've been focused on 9 o'clock. And then the second 9 o'clock rolls around and I blow right past it. Now I'm making myself wrong because I've stayed up late versus just focusing on. So what do I focus on?
Yeah,
I love that we're going
Yes.
granular because I think you're trying to challenge us to think about the deeper reasons why this matters and why you as a person deserve this kind of care from yourself.
Yes. Yes. So the reason that boundaries are the first principle of real self-care is to even be able to make space to think in this way, to look at how your day is going, how your week is going. You need to take some time back from other people in your life, from responsibilities, right? So you need to have the time to actually think, okay, I need to go to bed a little bit later. How am I going to make that happen? What are the things that I'm doing to procrastinate? The boundary is the way that you make the space to even be able to have this conversation with yourself. It's not just the operational. Yes, there is the operational boundary of I'm going to turn screens off. I'm going to, all of that is just as important, but it's also like kind of a meta thing too.
I just got a big insight about myself that I'm going to share because I hope it's, as you're listening, it maybe helps you think deeper. I just realized something as you're pushing me to think more deeply about what I actually need. I have just come through a period where I've been working so much because of changes here at work and my book manuscript was due, that by the time I rolled into the TV room where my husband had been watching TV for half an hour and he's ready to go to bed, I'm just finishing work. And I'm staying awake because I haven't relaxed at all until that moment. I'm not ready to go to bed. And so the boundary really isn't about going to bed at 9. It's really about taking back more of my time from work and from other demands. This kind of tension around getting to bed at the right time has way more to do with how I've overextended myself everywhere. And that means it's more than a bedtime. It's taking a deeper look at where am I working on things that don't matter to me? Where have I said yes, where I need to actually say no? What do I want my evenings to look like so that I feel like I get a little bit of time and enjoyment and rest and entertainment back? Wow.
Well, my work here is done.
Well, can we unpack one more? Because I think it would be really helpful. Let's go to the example that you said of somebody that's got a super busy day and you're starting to realize that, holy cow, at the end of the day, I feel like a raisin and my urine is bright orange because I have not had a droplet of water and I need to set a boundary of taking a break every hour and making sure I drink something or I eat something. Can we unpack what that's actually about or how you draw that boundary or what that means?
Yeah, it's going to be really painful.
To pee or to no? Okay,
no, it's going to be really painful to draw the boundary, and I think so. There's no like shorthand. It's just kind of like you just have to do it. But the reason it's hard is because you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel selfish. For most people, especially at work or parenting, the reason that you're constantly going is because you're taking care of everybody else. You have all these demands coming at you and, you want to be a good professional. You want to be a good mom. You want to be a good dad. So the hard part isn't in like knowing that you should do it and deciding to do it. The hard part is actually in you're going to feel guilty. And what do you do with that?
Tell us.
Which I do have a tool for. Yes.
How do we do? Why do we feel guilty?
That is a great question. So my theory is that the guilt actually is not ours. The guilt is something that we have internalized from a culture that prioritizes productivity and status. And for women, caretaking. We raise girls to get their value in their ability to be accommodating to others. So I think that the guilt actually is coming from the outside. But that doesn't change that it sucks to feel guilty. And, the number one reason that my patients struggle with boundaries is the guilt. So I'm going to share a tool that can help with the guilt. So this tool comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a third wave type of psychotherapy that incorporates Eastern like mindfulness and meditation in the concept. And I say that because I know folks that are listening, I know your audience is familiar with meditation and mindfulness. So hopefully this will resonate.
But I've never heard of the third wave of this. So that is a brand new concept for me. Okay.
So imagine that you are at a sushi restaurant. So one of those sushi restaurants where the plates are coming around on the conveyor belt, there is a sushi chef and he is at the center of all of the plates. That chef, the sushi chef, is your brain. That's your mind. The plates of sushi that are going around the conveyor belt are your thoughts and your feelings and your memories and your desires rolling through over the course of the whole day. And now, you're sitting at that sushi bar, and there's going to be plates that are really appetizing, like that you're going to want to pick up and grab and gobble. For me, that is like spicy tuna roll. I love spicy tuna roll, right? But then there's going to be plates that like really are unappetizing. For me, I really don't like when the shrimp has its head on. Like, I find that to be really gross.
I don't like that, like, kind of really skin-colored, fleshy, sea urchin, like watery texture thing.
Yeah. Right. There's going to be, right. And we all have different things where we're like, I just want to push that away.
Yes.
But you don't do that at a sushi restaurant. You just let the plates go by. So that's how we need to think about guilt. Guilt is not something it doesn't need to be our moral compass. It is just one feeling that is there among many other feelings and thoughts. And when we frame all of our decisions around boundaries based on guilt, we're giving it way too much power. The reason that I think that hopefully this metaphor helps for folks is because when you visualize the sushi train, you're able to see that the guilt is just one small piece over everything else. And if you spend all of your time trying to avoid feeling guilty, you're actually giving the guilt just as much power.
So I'm thinking about the person who is taking their break, and they're going to have their water and a little snack. And the second that they go down one floor and they hide in a room that nobody else is in, so you can just take a break and set that boundary, the feelings of, I should really get back to work. I shouldn't stay so long. I'm going to get in trouble if I'm doing this. You're saying every one of those thoughts are just a sushi plate of sea urchin going by, and you can just let it come and let it go and stay and have your water and keep in the pause.
Correct. Your job is to learn how to tolerate the guilt. And, I know that this is difficult, but the good news is that as you start to practice it, it becomes easier. The volume goes down on the guilt. It never completely goes away, again, because it's constructed from the outside, but it gets so much softer. It becomes more of a whisper, and you're able to be like, it doesn't bother you.
How do you counsel a patient who is coming to you and the guilt is related to being a single parent, or related to caring for an aging parent, or somebody that is going through an illness and it's just nonstop? How do you handle boundaries and truly caring for yourself or asking for help in those situations?
People who are in those situations usually are in fight or flight. Their nervous system is hypervigilant and stressed for good reason. They are carrying so much responsibility. So the first piece is just to acknowledge the grief, really. Just acknowledge how hard this is and how much it sucks, really. That validation goes a really long way. After that, there's a couple things. One, recognizing that by setting a boundary, by pausing, you're not always going to be able to say no, right? The boundary is the pause. Understanding that will feel uncomfortable because there are a lot of people depending on them, but they have to start somewhere small, right? We're talking about the small things, the feeding and watering yourself, and you'll be able to work up to the bigger things. And acknowledging in those situations, like, yes, there is going to be a cost. Like, balls will drop. Nora Roberts talks about the rubber balls versus the glass balls, right? You need to know what those rubber balls are.
Can you give us examples of what they are?
Yeah. So it's things like, I have 3 kids and they're all in different schools. And those schools each one is like 30 minutes from the other. Do my kids really all need to go to schools that are 30 minutes from each other? That is a choice. That is a choice that you have made. Here's another example. And I talk about this in the book. I'm the one who is taking care of my father. My mother passed away. I have other siblings, but they are not contributing at all. And I've been taking this for years and years and years. But you're finally going to understand that you can't do it all by yourself. And you will get sick if you continue to keep doing it all by yourself. So again, that's kind of like setting the boundary and understanding I need to have a hard conversation with my siblings. They need to chip in as well.
How do you coach somebody through that? Because that's such a common thing.
Yeah.
Where you're the one that's close by.
Yeah.
And maybe your siblings aren't. And you've asked for help, but it doesn't come.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have that boundary? Because so many of us feel like, well, I'm not just going to let my father rot alone as a way to make a point to my siblings. How do you truly ask and like demand an effective way to get the support that you need?
So it depends a little bit on the circumstances. So you have to think about how intact are the relationships that you have with your siblings? Mm-hmm. Do they have the capacity to help? If they don't, then you need to make that decision for yourself that you are going to find help in other ways, that you are going to move forward regardless of what they're able to do or not able to do. Again, I mentioned grief earlier. Being able to process the fact that this isn't fair, that's important. Like, you need that space to be able to acknowledge that, but then also, despite that fact, still find a way to advocate for yourself. It might not be with your siblings because maybe they're just really not going to chip in. They're not going to help. Maybe it's, getting some help around the neighborhood. Maybe you have a babysitter that used to help you when your kids were younger, and maybe they can come around. Maybe it's, finding some activities for your parent. Like, it's never going to be something that completely takes away the feeling of burden in some sense. I know that that's a loaded word, but you have to start with small things. Like, it's not like you can just say like, okay, I'm setting a boundary and here's the boundary. No, you have to kind of be more surgical with it.
Well, one thing that I often see that surprises me, and I haven't been in this situation, so it's easy to kind of look on the outside and think I'd do something different. But I have a number of friends who became the primary caretaker of an aging parent and no support from siblings. But then they would make the mistake of thinking they should consult their siblings about the decisions. And so to me, if there's not an equal sharing of the burden, you actually have no seat at the table to make the decisions.
Yeah.
And that to me is one of those choices that could be a boundary in that situation, like where your own behavior isn't creating enough space between you and the situation to make decisions that feel more powerful for you because of the guilt. You talk about selfishness. You said guilt and selfishness are the two emotions that come up. How do you deal with selfishness? Is it the exact same thing as the sushi plate?
Yeah. So the sushi plate definitely helps for sure. One of the other things that I think about with selfishness is just the fact that we're kind of constantly ping-ponging back and forth between selfish versus selfless. And obviously for women, selfless is something that is really put on a pedestal. And selfish is something that is, this dreaded outcome. When in reality, the healthy way to be living is to be in shades of gray, to be in the middle place. I mentioned earlier that one of the signs of not having boundaries is to feel like you're managing your family as opposed to being part of your family. I'm not saying that every single decision, is according to your preference. It's like maybe 1 out of every 10 decisions that you make is according to your preference. That you're actually including yourself. I find that when my patients feel selfish, it's usually because they are engaging in some sort of black and white thinking. They're kind of all or nothing. Either I'm selfish or I'm selfless. And the reality is it's a middle ground.
What are the top 3 boundaries that you find that people really need to set in their life?
So one of the biggest things is all of the decisions that you make as a parent, whether that is when your kids are really little, around like, how you're going to feed your kid, how you're going to get your kid to sleep, who's going to take care of your kid, all the way up to, what college is my kid going to go to? What are they going to do with their life? Which, Mel, I know you just completed. The boundary is not ruminating so much about all those these, not assuming that you have so much control. So I spend a lot of time with my patients kind of helping them understand that these things in parenting don't need to be constantly litigated in your mind. Of course, work is such a huge, aspect of what I talk about with my patients, and just a lot of things that you said too, Mel, like being able to disconnect, finding a way to let go of, whatever work project or whatever dynamic that's going on with your boss, and giving yourself permission to let it go.
How do you do that when you're worried about getting fired? And I'm not saying that you're doing a bad job, but I am shocked at how quickly I see this, especially like with my adult kids or with friends who they're clearly in a situation that's not working for them. But it's like, but I can't get another job, but I got bills to pay, and so there's this narrative in your mind that is so fear driven that is a part of this dynamic where you've lost power. So how do you begin to start to set boundaries at work when you've convinced yourself you have no power and you need this paycheck?
There's the couple things for this. So one is, again, I keep going back to the start small. The reason for that, the drink water, take lunch, is because that's a small risk. That's a small risk. And then you can see how your boss reacts. You can see how your coworkers react. If you're at a place where people lose their minds because you're taking 15 minutes to eat lunch, okay, well, then taking a bigger risk is probably going to be, make more waves than you want it to. So you're collecting information. I kind of call it collecting data. You don't want to take that big risk first because, yeah, it's true. You need your job. The other thing that I would say is I find that there are places that we can exert agency that might be hidden or are not sort of top level that you are constantly thinking about. When you're in a toxic work situation, you're constantly sort of just like, oh God, this person said this and I have but sometimes there can be smaller things that really make an impact.
Like what?
So I experienced this actually when I was a medical student, which talk about no agency, right? You're just on this conveyor belt. I was in a surgical rotation that was very toxic. And I realized I was miserable. I realized my team, they never called me by my name. They were just no, they were just like, hey, med student. Hey, med student. My boundary, I couldn't leave. I was in med school. It was every time somebody said that, I would be like, oh, my name's Pooja. And that had me feel a little bit like, okay, I'm, exerting myself.
I don't actually think that's a small example. And the reason why I don't think that's a small example is because everything that you're teaching us is about caring for self. And that requires you to have a level of self-awareness and respect for yourself that you, in these moments, will advocate for yourself, will ask for what you need, will tell people the correct pronunciation of your name or that this is my name. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that you do reclaim your power in the tiniest of moments because there's so many times during your day where you just let something slide. And those are examples, whether it's somebody who belittles you or disrespects you or mispronounces your name and you just kind of let it slide, that you don't honor yourself and what you need. And so I think that's a big example.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's important to point out, and I'm going to go back to the water because I remember when I left my job as a public defender in New York City and we moved to Boston. And the only job that I could get in the legal field was working for this huge law firm because I was not licensed in the state of Massachusetts. So I couldn't do trial work. And I freaking hated that job. And I remember there were a couple times that I went outside the office for lunch and I came back and I was not admonished, but one time it was a friend who was like, dude, the partner was looking for you and they couldn't find you and they're really upset and you weren't in the building. And, I wouldn't do that. And it was this huge moment where I immediately felt like I had no power over my life. And so I came up with all these little strategies, one of which was if I would go out, I'd leave my jacket on my chair. And I also moved my desk so they couldn't walk by and see my computer, but that they'd have to look in and see the back of just small ways to kind of, and every time I would leave the building, it was this tiny little act of defiance, but it was a boundary and a way for me to say, I still have some agency here. And I think simply doing these small things first help you do the bigger things later. How do you even know if you're starting to practice this type of deeper care for self? I wouldn't even call it self-care. It's like care for self, which feels like you're getting at the heart of truly caring for yourself. What would your life feel like if you, I guess maybe can you describe, because sometimes if you're like, drink water, like really, like let yourself relax at night, Mel. Don't put the pressure on a bedtime. What's available to you?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love how you just said that. When you're practicing these principles and you're applying them to your life, you feel like you have choices. You're able to actually take a step back when somebody asks you for something or asks you to do something and consider it. You don't feel pressured. You feel like you can take your time. And that doesn't mean that every single thing in your life you're going to push back and say no. No, it's like you pick your battles. You're able to do this pause and say no, and the guilt will be very small. It'll be a whisper. It'll be a whisper, not something that overpowers your whole life. You will have feelings of flow, really, where you're engaged in activities or with people where time kind of falls away and you're fully present. You will be nicer. You will be a nicer person to be around. Those are all of the signs that it's working. And I want to say a couple things with this. One, this isn't a game of perfection. Like, this isn't something you win. This is something that you're constantly practicing. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to be like the best person in the world. I need to get an A in boundaries to be able to do this. No, you can get a D in boundaries and you're just climbing your way up. Like, we're constantly just taking baby step on baby step on baby step, and you will fall off. You will fall off. And then you just come back. You just come back. Like, that's the whole thing. It's not like you achieve this and you check it off your list. It's more like you use it as again, like a thermometer, like that I have in the book. It's like you're assessing yourself. And then when you find like, oh, okay, I'm like getting a little off here. Let me look at what's going on. Let me start to think about how I'm spending my time or my energy.
The image that just came to mind as I was listening to you, and it's really changed the way I am looking at boundaries right now. And that is like, I see a force field. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like you're erecting a personal force field between you and the world. And there's this space, the pause that you called it, between the things going on out here and all your concern and worry and emotion and all that stuff and what you choose to do in response. It's like that space that allows you to truly make a more powerful decision. Is that?
Yeah. Can I make an adjustment?
I would love to. Love you to. Yes. Please adjust all you want.
Yes. I mean, I like the imagery of the force field. I worry that the force field feels a little bit too much like a brick wall. Because, right now, we're seeing all these things of people that are just like cutting out their families and like, I don't talk to this person, that person's canceled, whatever. A healthy boundary is actually, it's like, those big trampolines people have in their backyards?
Yeah.
And then there's the mesh net.
Uh-huh.
That's what a boundary should be like. It's flexible. It's give and take. And yes, certainly there's going to be times where it needs to be like more sturdy and more firm. But the goal of a boundary isn't to always keep people out. The goal about, right? Because remember, yes, no, negotiate. The goal of the boundary is to be able to go in between so that you can get what you need. And hopefully the other person can too. Maybe not all the time, but it's more flexible.
That makes sense. If you could speak directly to the person listening, what is one action that they could take today? Because I know they're going to want to try to implement this. Is there something specific that they could do today to start to implement everything that you've taught us? Like, what's the most important thing to do?
So the best way to take this information in and to start working with it is to actually make time for it. So to look at your schedule.
Okay.
Look at your schedule and say, when can I block off 20 minutes to think about my week? This could be on Monday or on Friday.
Well, let's say it's going to be today.
Okay.
So you're going to look for 20 minutes today. You might be in the front seat of your car, might be after dinner, might be, I don't know when, but you're going to look for 20 minutes. What exactly am I? Here comes my type A. What am I doing?
Yes. Yes.
What's the thing? I'm
Yes.
going to the thing. What am I doing in the 20 minutes?
Yes. So you're looking at your schedule and you're paying attention to how each thing on your schedule feels. Where do you feel dread? Where do you feel excitement and energy? Where do you feel boredom? Right? You're looking to see what feelings come up. And then for the places where you feel bored, where you feel dread, you take the pause and you're setting aside 20 minutes. In those 20 minutes, think about, okay, what is it about that thing? What is it about that meeting that makes me kind of just feel uncomfortable? Is it because that coworker who's always a little bit rude to me is there at those meetings? Is it because that meeting is always at 4:30 and actually I'm supposed to be picking my kid up at 4:30 and I haven't asked for that time? Thinking more deeply about what it is. And then, so that's the first step. And then next week, take some sort of action.
Let's take both of those examples. So there's the meeting that is always scheduled at the time that I'm supposed to pick my kids up. What is the pause that you can take? It's a yes, no, negotiate in terms of the boundary. So what are the options that you would have?
Let's just say that the meeting is a weekly standing team meeting. The boundary, the pause would be saying, okay, when's the best time actually to communicate to my team that I'd like to see if we can move the weekly meeting? Can I send an email out and say, hey, I actually have daycare pickup. Looking forward for next calendar year, can we change this standing meeting? Or even like next month, can we change this calendar meeting? Does anybody have any objections to that? So you're communicating and voicing what's not working for you and then making a suggestion for what could change. Now, I'm not going to be Pollyanna about this and say that, every time that's going to work. But the whole thing here is exerting your agency. If you don't ask, it's never going to change.
I love this example because, first of all, taking the 20 minutes today is a pause.
Yes.
This is you pausing from just racing through your day and racing into the next week. And then scanning your calendar for the next week and looking at every obligation from the sense of how does this make me feel? Is you pausing again and dropping deeper into the principles that you were talking about and your values and really like asking yourself, what is coming up for me? And then the coaching that you just gave us to then further pause and say, what requests can I make? What can I negotiate? What could I say no to? What do I need to say yes to? That's another example of you actually excavating agency and power that you had no idea that you had because you have been so busy racing from one thing to the next. I get it now. I get what you mean, that it's in the pause. that you will find your power and the agency that you have to make small adjustments and requests and to say no and to let the guilt rise up or not in that pause. Wow. What are your parting words?
My parting words are, if I can do it, you can do it. That this is something that we're all practicing together. It's something that we're learning for the first time. And I know it might sound a little bit intimidating, but the reality is that once you start taking this pause, each time it will be easier. Each time that you see the world doesn't fall apart, my family doesn't fall apart, the sun is still shining, that is another way that you're building your confidence. So I want everyone who's listening to know that this is possible and that you've got this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be with you and to learn from you.
This was so fun. Thank you, Mel.
You're welcome. And I also want to make sure that in case no one else tells you, that I tell you that I love you, I believe in you, and I believe in your ability to create a better life. And there's zero doubt in my mind that if you do take 20 minutes today, which I hope you do, and you look at your calendar and you lean into this pause, that you will tap into this power that is inside you to start to take control of these small moments and reclaim those aspects of your life. Alrighty, I'll talk to you in a few days in the next episode. I just want to take a minute and thank you for being here on YouTube, for making it all the way to the end of this episode. Wasn't that extraordinary? I am so excited about my week ahead now that I know the areas in my life where, oops, I need to hit the pause, need some boundaries. If you made it this far, could you do me a favor? Could you click here? I guess I'm asking for what I need. Could you click there and subscribe to the channel? It's free. And one of the reasons why this is so important, because it lets me know that you enjoy the content. It supports the team. It helps us bring videos and amazing experts to you every single day. And by the way, speaking of amazing experts, if you loved watching this episode, you're really going to enjoy this one, where I reveal the 5 surprising things that you're wasting time and energy on right now. You probably don't even know it. I cannot wait to see you in that episode. You are spending your days right now giving so much of yourself to everyone else, to your work, to your family, to the responsibilities that you have, to the constant stream of emails that are coming in, the texts, the demands of life that are pulling you in every single direction, that by the time the day is done, I know how you feel, because I feel the same way. You are wiped out. The tank of gas in your brain, it is on empty. And today, you and I are going to do something about it. You get to choose whether or not you're going to succumb to the pressures and the programming of the modern world, or if you're going to take your evenings and your sanity back. I'm going to teach you this simple 5-step evening routine that never fails me. It's time for you and me to reclaim our evenings. Hey, it's your friend Mel. Welcome to the Mel Robbins podcast. I am so excited that you're here. First of all, it's always such an honor to spend time with you, to be together. And I wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that if you're a new listener, welcome to the Mel Robbins podcast family. I am so glad that you are here. And because you made the time to hit play and listen to this particular episode, I know that you're the type of person who values your time. You want to make the most of your evenings. You know you need to get a good night's sleep. You deserve to, and you're looking for simple ways to make that a reality. And boy, oh boy, have you picked a winner. And I also want you to know something, that you are spending your days right now giving so much of yourself to everyone else, to your work, to your family, to the responsibilities that you have, to the constant stream of emails that are coming in, the texts, the demands of life that are pulling you in every single direction, that by the time the day is done, I know how you feel, because I feel the same way. You are wiped out. The tank of gas in your brain, it is on empty. And today, you and I are going to do something about it. So I want to applaud the fact that you're making time to listen to something that's going to help your life be a little bit better. And I want to also point out something kind of cool. If somebody forwarded this to you and told you should listen to this episode, you want to know what's cool about that? It means that you have somebody in your life that's looking out for you, that cares about you, that wants you to feel better. I just think that's so cool. And so thank you again for being here. Thank you for taking time to listen to this. And I'm really excited to share everything with you because I know it's going to resonate because I'm struggling with this issue too, which is it's time for you and me to reclaim our evenings. And I'm going to teach you this simple 5-step evening routine that never fails me. Whenever I feel exhausted, overwhelmed, and weary, this is what I return to. These 5 steps, these are the basics. This is the foundation for creating an evening routine that really takes care of you. It sets you up to have a great day in the morning. And most importantly, what I love about this particular 5-step evening routine is, first of all, it's so simple. Second, this has nothing to do with productivity. You know, I don't know about you, but I don't feel right now like, ooh, let's attack the goals. Like, I feel like life is so overwhelming and the headlines are so depressing and everybody's got so much going on and there's so much information coming at us that by the time I get home, and my God, I have unpacked my backpack and I have put away the groceries and I've cooked dinner, I'm exhausted. Like, I feel like I've given everything that I had to give to everyone else. And now I've made it to the end of the day. It's 7 or 8 o'clock. I can't believe I'm still standing. And now I don't want to do anything. But here's the problem. The things that you do in the evening actually set you up to have a great day tomorrow or to wake up feeling even more exhausted, more overwhelmed, and more weary. And here's why I wanted to talk about this right now. First of all, I'm struggling with this. I've noticed this pattern in me where I'm scrolling on my phone at night and I know better. And so do you. I'm sitting there flipping through the channels and next thing you know, 2 hours goes by and I haven't even watched a show. And you've experienced this too. Why is this happening right now? Why is it that we live in this moment of time where you know you need to get a good night's sleep? You know that you don't want to waste your entire evening scrolling on your phone. You know that you don't want to stay up past midnight or past 11 p.m. and then screw yourself over because you don't actually get in bed in time to get a good night's sleep. So if we know that what's good for us is winding down and taking care of ourselves and getting into bed at a reasonable hour, why are we doing it? Well, there's a really interesting explanation for why so many of us are getting less sleep and we're wasting our evenings doing nothing. And it has to do with something called decision fatigue. See, you and I are making decisions all day long. In fact, I have this really interesting article that I found as I was researching our conversation today. It was an article that was published by the American Medical Association, and in it, you can hear me flipping through the pages. The reporter is interviewing Dr. Lisa McLean, who is a psychiatrist and the chief wellness officer at Henry Ford Health System in Michigan. Now, this is an entire article about something called decision fatigue. And the reason why I want to unpack this is because I want to give you some credit. Do you know how much you're doing all day? I don't even think you understand how you're showing up for everybody else, how you're doing a great job at work, how you're answering the emails, how you're returning the texts, how you're making decisions all day long. And decision fatigue, according to Dr. McLean and all of this research that she's citing, is a very real thing. It's the idea, quote, that after making many decisions, your ability to make more and more decisions over the course of the day becomes worse. The more decisions you have to make, the more fatigue you develop, and the more difficult it can become. And she goes on to write, because I don't think you've stopped to consider just how many decisions you make every single day. Well, the researchers have figured it out. Here's what Dr. McLean has to say. By the time the average person goes to bed, that's you and me, you've made over 35,000 decisions. I mean, just even trying to embrace that number is exhausting. 35,000 decisions? And if you're sitting there going, no, I don't. 35,000 decisions in a day? Well, just stop and think about it. Everything from what do you wear to when are you leaving for work to picking up your toothbrush to whether or not you make the left turn or the right turn or you hit the brakes or you read the book or you don't, you answer the text or you like all day long. You are making decisions, which means all day long. If you think about a human being, I think about it this way. I think about you and I having a gas tank, right? And so you wake up in the morning, and this is so elementary, but this is how I try to process this for myself. When you wake up in the morning, you've got a full tank of gas. And all day long, every single decision that you're making, all the effort that you're exerting, all the caretaking, all the consideration, all the talking, all the thinking, every time you make a little decision or you put in a little effort, guess what? You're just slowly draining that tank of energy. And what's the result? Well, by the time you get home and you've taken care of everybody else, you're exhausted. The fuel tank is near empty. And if you're anything like me, what do you want to do? Nothing. You want to do nothing because you have been doing something all day long. You've been doing something for your boss. You've been doing something for your professors. If you're in school, you've been doing something for your parents, for your kids, for your significant other. You've been doing things for your friends by texting back. You've taken care of work. You've taken care of bills. You've taken care of feeding the dogs or feeding the cat. Like it is going on and on. And aren't you just exhausted thinking about this? Of course you are. So am I. And this is why I wanted to explain this, because if this is what you're doing all day long, you're literally reading the news and then you're reading emails and then you're talking in a meeting and then you're driving from here to there and then you're thinking about your friends and you're exerting all this effort. No wonder that by the end of the night, all you want to do is nothing. See, Dr. McLean says in this article that, quote, a person with decision fatigue, which you and I have. Have you ever, like at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, just been like, I don't want to think anymore? I know I've said that. Like you just literally put your phone, I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to have to fold laundry. I can do it tomorrow. Well, according to Dr. McLean, check this out. This is decision fatigue. You're tapped out because of everything you've already done. We're not giving ourselves credit for that, of course. We're just feeling exhausted. She says a person with decision fatigue may feel tired, have brain fog, or experience other signs and symptoms of physical or mental fatigue. And the phenomenon is cumulative, so that as the person makes more decisions throughout the day, guess what? You feel worse, or you might be more drained as the day progresses. Holy cow. I feel like I've had nothing but a string of days recently where by the time I'm finishing my last meeting at work, I feel like I am army crawling through the end of one of those Spartan marathon races through the mud up a mountain where they're like electrocuting you at the very end as you're crawling underneath all these barriers. I know that you feel the same way. And it gets even deeper. There are actually 4 main symptoms, medically speaking, that show that you have decision fatigue. You ready? Because you're about to go, me. Number 1 symptom, that you're tapped out, no more decisions. Procrastination. Yep. If you're putting off folding the laundry tonight and saying, I'm just too tired, I'm going to do it tomorrow, there you go. Impulsivity. Yep. Like, for example, the fact that I popped off the couch last night, walked into the kitchen, stood in front of the open freezer, pulled out an ice cream carton and started eating from it with a spoon. Yep, that was last night. Avoidance, yes. I avoid anything that requires a decision, which is why I scroll like a mindless zombie idiot on my phone, because that doesn't require me to do anything except for zone out. Are you saying same? And you want to know the 4th symptom that medically speaking means you're struggling with decision fatigue? Indecision. How many times have you parked yourself on the couch and you've picked up the clicker and you literally spend an hour clicking through trailers, trying to find something online to watch? I mean, I will literally spend an hour watching trailers only to make no decision about what to watch. It's almost like looking at trailers online on Amazon Prime or on Netflix or Hulu or whatever it is that you like to watch. that looking at trailers is the new way to doom scroll on social media, only you're doing it on TV. I know you're laughing because you do it. Or do you do that thing where my husband has this notes app and he has been keeping track of movie recommendations from people for literally like 4 years? I guarantee you every other night he pulls it out as I'm flipping through trailers and he's like, well, let's take a look at the list. And we have read through the list 55,000 times and there is nothing on the list that I want to watch. And now I know why. Because one of the symptoms of decision fatigue after a very long day, which you experience and I experience, is indecision. I can't decide what I want to watch because I have no freaking brain power left to make a decision. And this brings me to the fact that you and I are losing control of our evenings because of this decision fatigue. And I want to take a giant highlighter and highlight it because if you don't know what you're up against, it will continue to win. And so understanding and giving yourself credit that your days are long, you got a lot on your plate. You are doing so much. You're doing a great job. You are pouring into everybody else. You are doing your best in what feels at times like an impossible workload and an overwhelming world. And then you come home and you want to know what? Holy cow. I don't blame you. You've made enough decisions. Where's the reward? Here's the problem. And this has been a problem for me for several weeks now, is that it's understandable to feel exhausted at the end of the day, and you deserve a pat on the back. And you should be saying to yourself, I did a great job today. I did my best. I showed up. And I want to say that in case you're not saying it to yourself. But when you reach this point where you have decision fatigue, and medically speaking, you're like, I'm up against avoidance and indecision and impulsivity and procrastination. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Because here you've been focused all day long. You've been making the best decisions that you can. And now when you've got an evening all to yourself, now impulsivity, procrastination, and indecision takes over and you screw yourself over. That's what I've been doing. See, this is what revenge bedtime procrastination is. It's this form of procrastination that hits because you're exhausted by your day. You've just given everything that you had to give to everybody else and everything else. And now at a moment in time where you deserve rest, where you deserve to put yourself first, where you deserve to turn back toward yourself and make yourself a priority. Now at this moment where you and I just can't even think about another thing, this is where we procrastinate. See, you and I are making a decision consciously to get less sleep. Why? Why are we doing that? Why are we consciously deciding to flip through channels? Why are we mindlessly scrolling on our phones? Why are we doing this? I'll tell you why. This is crazy. You're just trying to regain some personal time. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, that's why you collapse on the couch. That's why I do it. And you want to know the totally screwed up thing is that my husband doesn't do this. It's kind of annoying. Like, the man is so disciplined. He has his habits dialed in. His number one habit is sleep. And that man, when it is ready for him to go to bed, boom, he pops off that couch. He will leave me stranded on a deserted island called the couch in front of the TV while I am flipping through the phone and flipping through the channels. And then, honest to God, this is what happened to me last night. The man was in bed at 9 o'clock at night. 11:35, I look up and I'm like, why am I still sitting here? Why am I still sitting here? And then, of course, I make myself wrong because, of course, you do the same. I should have gone to bed hours ago. I should have gone to bed hours ago. And now I have allowed decision fatigue to turn into procrastination at bedtime, where I'm making a decision. I'll just scroll a little longer. I'll just flip through the channels a little longer. I'll just avoid going to bed when I know it's the best thing for me because I'm now struggling with indecision because I gave it all to everybody else. No more. No more. I've done this to myself for several weeks. Now it's time for me to get serious about putting myself first again. And that brings me to the 5 steps of this super simple evening routine. This is an evening routine when the world is making you feel weary. This is the evening routine that helps you set yourself up without requiring any kind of motivation, any kind of effort, any kind of willpower. This is so simple, and yet it is going to pour back into you, and that's why you're going to love it. And every one of these 5 steps, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I know this. I just needed to be reminded of this. And the best advice in my mind is the advice that reminds you of what you know to be true. Because when you have this sense that, yeah, this is actually true, and yeah, I am struggling with decision fatigue, and yeah, I do a lot. And since I do a lot, instead of rewarding myself with 3 hours of mindless social media, why don't I just get a couple extra hours of sleep? Wouldn't that be awesome? And before we jump into this, I want to just share one more piece of research to really just say it's okay. It's okay if you're resonating with everything and you're nodding along. You're like, that's me, that's me. And there's a reason why this happens. It's not you. This has to do with the fact that your brain's just tired. In fact, in this article, Dr. McLean says research shows that the best time to make decisions is in the morning. The morning is when we make the most accurate and thoughtful decisions, and we tend to be more cautious and meticulous. How many times have you woken up in the morning and thought, all right, tonight, I'm actually going to go to bed early. Tonight, I am not going to waste 3 hours looking at social media. Tonight, I am not going to flip through the channels. Tonight, I'm actually going to do my thing and I'm going to get to bed early. Well, the reason why you can think clearly in the morning is because research shows that you have the ability to be more accurate and thoughtful and cautious and meticulous. And the opposite is true at the end of the day. That according to the research, you and I hit a plateau in the afternoon, and by the evening, your decisions are more impulsive. And that explains why you can know that you need to go to bed, but you make an impulsive decision because you're tired to not go to bed. So again, I'm going to tell you, it's not your fault. This is happening to all of us. And simply because you and I know that we shouldn't be doing it, it just isn't enough to overcome all the things that are working against you and what an incredible job you're doing all day long. And so here's what you're going to do. First of all, you're going to give yourself a break. You're going to recognize that this is a thing. You're going to acknowledge that this actually isn't your fault. And I'm going to walk you through the 5 steps of this super simple evening routine. And the best part, none of this actually requires any true decision making, like for real. This is the kind of 5-step routine you can do on autopilot. You can do with 0 gas in the tank. That's how easy this is, and it works. And so let's start with step number 1. And step number 1 of this simple evening routine for when the world is making you feel weary is pick your bedtime. This is the foundation for everything, and it is so obvious that when you're exhausted, you actually miss this step. And if you don't do step 1, the whole evening's out the window completely. See, your entire evening routine depends on this. You have to pick your bedtime. If you don't pick your bedtime, you don't have an evening routine. And that's part of the problem is most people don't pick a real bedtime. Like you think, oh, okay, I need to go to bed at 10. But in reality, you're scrolling until midnight. And so you have to be intentional about this. And here's the real trick. Are you ready? It's not sort of when you think you want to go to bed. You have to actually think to yourself, if I want to get a good night's sleep, and that's roughly 8 hours, here's the rule of thumb. And this comes from a conversation with one of the most renowned sleep experts in the world. Her name is Dr. Rebecca Robbins. She is a medical doctor and a sleep researcher at Brigham and Women's Hospital here in Boston, Massachusetts. And she basically explains that, the mistake that a lot of us make is we think that, if I got to get 8 hours of sleep, I'm going to go right to bed at 10 o'clock. That means 8 hours of sleep at 6 a.m. Bada bing, bada boom. She's like, no. Even the best sleepers actually take about 20 minutes to truly fall asleep. And so here's a simple rule of thumb. I'm going to give a huge shout out to my friend Amy. This is the rule of 9 hours. You ready? This is going to blow your mind. If you want to get 8 hours of sleep, you need to spend 9 hours in bed. You ready? You want to get 8 hours of sleep? You got to spend 9 hours in bed. And so here's how I want you to find your real bedtime. And you can make this decision first thing in the morning. Like first thing in the morning when you don't have decision fatigue, you can say to yourself, tonight, I'm going to get a good night's sleep, which means I got to spend 9 hours in bed if I want to get 8 hours. And so what time do I need to wake up? And then let's work backwards. So let me explain how this works. Let's say that you want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. In order to follow this rule, you want 8 hours of sleep, you got to spend 9 hours in bed. We got to move from 6 a.m. all the way back in time, 9 hours. That means your bedtime is 9 p.m. So if you want to get 8 hours of sleep and be up by 6 a.m., you got to be in bed by 9 p.m. I love this rule of thumb. And now let's give you some more examples. If you want to wake up at 7 a.m. and you'd actually like to give yourself 8 hours of sleep, if we go from 7 a.m. back in time 9 hours, you got to be in bed by 10. You got to be in bed by 10 p.m. If you're going to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, in order to get 8 hours of sleep, do not be in bed at midnight. That was the old Mel Robbins. Pull right in, right on the deadline there. I got to get right in bed for the 8 hours. No. You're not giving yourself actual time to fall asleep. So by the time you get into bed, you're already late. You're already behind. And so your bedtime is not when you fall asleep. It's when you physically get in bed. Just think to yourself, when do I actually need to get up in the morning to set myself up to have a good day? So give yourself time. For me, that's 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is really the golden hour for me. If I get out of bed at 6 a.m. and I've had 8 hours of sleep, I am a different human being. And the problem is that if I do this math, I got to be in bed for 9 hours to get 8 hours of sleep. And if I want to get up at 6 a.m., that means I got to be in bed by 9 p.m. That's not what my bedtime's been. So no wonder I'm screwing myself over. And so I want you to think about this right now, because you know what time you should be getting out of bed, because it just gives you enough time to set yourself up and get your morning started in a way that empowers you, which you deserve, by the way, because you're doing so much all day long. So let's start there. Do you want to get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7, 8? What time do you want to get up? And then let's move the clock backwards 9 hours. And that's your bedtime. And one more also piece of research here that will help you with this is you can pick this as a general rule for yourself. Like my husband's bedtime is 9 p.m. That's when the man goes to sleep. And he falls asleep very fast. He wakes up at 5:30 a.m. like clockwork every single day. He has no drama, no procrastination, because he has picked his bedtime. And what's interesting is there's research from Harvard Medical School. This comes from their Guide to a Good Night's Sleep, that having a consistent bedtime helps you fall asleep faster and get deeper sleep. So step one, which you can do right now, is I want you to pick your bedtime. And I promise you it's earlier than you think it should be, because I never did the math properly until I sat down with Dr. Rebecca Robbins and had this, whoa, wait a minute. If I want 8 hours of sleep, I got to be in bed 9 hours. That gives me time to read a book. It gives me time to kind of lay there. It doesn't put pressure on me. I don't start getting nervous. I'm actually working with the science. And since you pick your bedtime ahead, you don't need to worry about decision fatigue. And here's another simple tip you can do. If you're just starting to learn this new routine, put it in your phone as an alarm. Because that way, if you're sitting on the couch mindlessly procrastinating and doom scrolling or flipping through the channels, boom, it comes up and it's like bedtime. You need to be in bed for 9 hours to get 8 hours of sleep, and you deserve that. And if that pops up, it's like a little nudge from you when you had clearer thinking to remind you, okay, put the phone down, because it's time to turn back toward you and give your energy back to you. Now you're going to move to step 2. Clean up the mess so you start your day fresh. It's just like flushing the toilet. Like when you've used the toilet and you've made a mess, why would you leave it in there? Of course you don't want to. You want to clean up the mess so that you have a bowl that's fresh, right? And I want you to think about your day just like using a bathroom. When you're done, you flush. You don't leave it there. You don't want to have to stare at it again. And the same is true about cleaning up today's mess so you can start tomorrow fresh. Because why would you leave today's mess for you to clean up tomorrow morning? See, there's a huge difference when you wake up and you walk into the kitchen area and it's clean. There's a huge difference when you walk into the place where your sink is and there's nothing in it. It's the difference between waking up fresh and feeling behind because you got all this stuff all over the kitchen counter. You got all this stuff lying on the floor. You got all this stuff spread out all over the place. You got all this stuff piled up in the sink. How does that make you feel? It makes me feel like I'm behind. It makes me feel like I got stuff that I need to do that I should have done yesterday that's now sitting here staring at me right in the face first thing in the morning. And so when I just do step 2, and again, this is kind of that thing where you got like 15 minutes before it's your bedtime, and now it's time to just clean up today's mess so you can start tomorrow fresh. What does that look like? It takes 5 minutes. Like, I'm not talking about doing a deep clean. I'm talking about just cleaning up the mess. Why? So when you wake up tomorrow, it's fresh, you're calm, you're in control. You got nothing you got to do but just step into the day. And so here's what I do. It takes less than 5 minutes. And what I love about this is I do this on autopilot. Like, so I've worked a full day. I don't want to do anything. I've made dinner. I've fed the dogs. I've done a little laundry. I've collapsed on the couch. Maybe I've clicked through channels. Maybe I've scrolled a little bit. All of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it's getting close to my bedtime. Time to clean up today's mess. So I first walk through the kitchen and I get everything out of the sink. I literally load the dishwasher. I wash out the pots. I clear off the counters. If the trash is full, I take out the trash and walk it into the garage. If there's things that are not where they belong, like somebody has hung their jacket on the chairs around the island, I pick up the jacket, I walk it and put it on the hook. I plug in my laptop. If I've got things that I need to remember for work, I stack them in a little pile and I put them on the countertop. That's all that I'm talking about. That's it. For you, it might mean that pile of clothes that are in the corner of the bedroom, put them in a laundry basket instead of letting them lay there. You know, the other night I got home from a trip and I'd opened up my suitcase, but I hadn't unpacked it. Do you know what clean up today's mess meant? It didn't mean unpack everything and start laundry. I literally folded my suitcase back up and stuck it in my closet. Clean up the mess. Because when I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I see is not the open suitcase and something that I needed to do that I should have done yesterday. And there's something really incredible that happens when you just have no energy and you're starting to wind down and you just kind of make a pass like a Zamboni through the kitchen and just kind of clear off the counters, you hang up the coats and you get everything out of the sink. And why does this work? Multiple studies show that living in a messy environment, it actually raises your stress level because you see things that aren't done. And when you wake up to yesterday's mess, it drains all of your energy for today before you even get into your day. And so the first decisions that you're making in the morning are, should I do the dishes that I left for last night? Should I hang up the cut? You could have mindlessly done those as part of your wind down routine. And see, doing it at night, it actually takes less effort. Why? Well, you already have no gas left in the tank. So you're not going to be a perfectionist about this. You're not going to turn like changing things around into some big project where you're now organizing kitchen drawers. You're just going to take the scissors and stick them in the drawer. Instead of taking the scissors first thing in the morning and be like, oh my gosh, this drawer's a mess. Now I should be organizing this thing. And next thing you know, you're like running even later because you took on something more in the morning when you had more energy. Don't do it. Don't do it. In fact, we were talking as a team about this, and one of our team members was like, oh my gosh, I have so gotten into a habit of leaving the dishes at night for me to do in the morning. And every time at night, I'm like, I'll do it in the morning. Why? Decision fatigue. We know you procrastinate, you're impulsive, and you avoid things when you have decision fatigue, which we all do at the end of the day. But what happens when you wake up and you've gotten up and you're ready to start your day and you walk in the kitchen and there is a disgusting pan that is full of soapy leftover chili that you have filled last night with hot water and soap thinking, oh, I'll just let it soak all overnight and it'll be easier. There is nothing easy about plunging your hands first thing in the morning into a greasy, cold, chunky pot that has been soaking all night. And now it's waiting for you like a dish hangover for you to deal with. And this is how you're starting your day. Don't do it. And look, again, I'm not trying to blame you. This isn't about like, ooh, becoming an ultra marathoner and like killing your goals. This is literally the world's already beating you down. You got enough to deal with. And so while you're already exhausted, while you're starting to wind down, while you're starting to turn off the lights and close the doors and all this stuff, literally like just clear off the counters. Do you see how this works? That you can just boom, do yourself a little favor while you're tired, you're kind of zombieing your way to bed, all good. And when you clean up today's mess so you can start tomorrow fresh, 5 minutes. And it's a gift you can give to yourself. All right, let's talk about number 3, okay? Number 3, I love this, is make tomorrow easier. Like set yourself up by making tomorrow easier. Because what's the hardest part about having a good morning routine? Again, it's all the decisions that you have to make. Am I going to exercise? How do I feel? Am I getting out of bed? Am I not? Am I drinking water? Am I drinking coffee? Am I getting sunlight in my eyes? What am I doing? And so one of my favorite things to do after I've cleaned up today's mess is how can I make tomorrow morning easier? How can I set myself up tonight? Just in simple ways. I'm not talking about anything complicated here. Again, you and I are doing these steps with 0 gas in the tank. We are doing these steps on autopilot. We are doing these steps because we know these simple things are a way to take care of ourselves when the world is wearing us down. And so there are simple things that I do when I'm literally half asleep walking to bed. Number 1, I always pull out my workout clothes and I just lay them right on the floor. Why? Well, because it's easy when you're exhausted and you're already in your bedroom to just pull open the door and be like, okay, tights and a tank top and a jog bra. And okay, I'm going to go for a walk. So let me throw the sweatshirt on. Boom, I'm done. No thinking about it. No considering how I feel about it. Nothing. Another thing that I do, super simple, as I'm clearing off the counters, a way that I make my mornings easier is I fill up a water bottle or I fill up, one of my handy little mason jars and I fill it up with water and I always pour in this like electrolyte mix by this company Element. I know you're going to ask. They're one of our sponsors. They did not pay me to say that. I actually use the watermelon flavor. Pour it into my water. It's got like magnesium and salt and potassium. And you know what I do with it? I stick it in front of the coffee maker. Why? Oh, well, I've just made my morning so much easier because when I get up and I go through my morning routine and I eventually walk out into the kitchen, first of all, kitchen's clean. So I got no mess to clear up. Thank you, Mel Robbins. My morning just got better. And then I walk over to the coffee maker because I want a cup of coffee, but then boom, I've set up my water. Now it's easy to drink water before coffee. It took me no time. Like I'm literally doing it sleepwalking at night. Thank you, Mel Robbins last night. What else do I do at times? I'll pack up my lunch. I will prep a little bit of breakfast or I'll at least look in there and be like, okay, there's no eggs. Oh, I could do yogurt. Okay, got it. Another thing you could do, put your keys in the same place. Pack up your backpack and put it on the counter. Set out the forms that the kids need. Why are you doing this? Well, because anything that you do tonight that could make tomorrow morning easier is a gift that you're giving to yourself. And so these simple things that if you are half asleep and you're organizing your work stuff and just collecting it on the island, boom, there you go. How much easier did you just make the morning? Now in the morning, you don't have to search for stuff and you just kind of did it half asleep. And this works because of what we've been talking about. This idea of all of the decisions that you have to make all day long. And so if you're literally 0 gas in the tank and you're already going to turn off the lights and you're already going to put the dogs in the mudroom or in their crates, or you're already going to turn down the heat, or you're already going to be kind of going through that, okay, turn off this light and do that, like the wind down so that you are now ending the day. as part of that, just do a few things that set you up for success. I mean, that's the coolest thing. One of the things my husband does that I've noticed recently is he drinks a smoothie in the morning before he works out. He now makes like a triple batch, and then he'll pour a bunch of it into mason jars, and then he puts it in the freezer. And then in the morning, he just pulls one out of the freezer and sticks it in the microwave for a minute. And now he's got like this soupy, yummy, pre-made protein thing. I mean, talk about making your life easier. And here's the other thing. All of these small little things that you're doing, and I love the one about laying out your clothes on the floor, right? It removes a decision you have to make in the morning. It removes any friction that your feelings create. I don't feel like doing it. I'm too tired. Well, there are the clothes. Just put them on. And that makes these new habits easier to stick to because you really don't have to think about it because you've just made it obvious and easier because it's staring at you right there. Another big trick for me that's really helped with making sure that I exercise every day is I pick what I'm going to do the day before for exercise. So for example, if I'm going to walk, I know I'm going to walk. If I'm going to stream an exercise class, which is what I did this morning, I've actually picked the exercise class and I text it to me. Why? Or I put it in my calendar because then in the morning, I don't have to make a decision. The clothes are on the floor, just staring at me. Like, what are you going to do? Step over me and ignore the fact that you're supposed to exercise? No, I'm going to put it on, even though I don't feel like it. And then instead of walking into the kitchen and going, okay, well, what am I going to do? I've already made the decision. I've texted myself the link to the class. And that makes it easier to get done. Do you see how genius this is? And here's the thing I love about this so much is that because I'm tired at night, I don't overthink these things. I just kind of mindlessly check the box. Like, do you ever, as you're standing at your door, question whether or not you should lock it or turn on the alarm? Of course not. Like, it doesn't matter how tired you are. You always turn off the lights and you always lock the door. Like, it's part of your routine. And picking a bedtime and cleaning up today's mess so tomorrow you can start fresh and just making little things easier in the morning. This is so mindless. It really does feel good. And that brings me to step 4. And this part's like amazing. You're just going to take 5 minutes for yourself. That's it. 5 minutes for you. Like, you already gave your day to everybody else. You already gave time to social media. You already took care of everybody in your family. You already responded to the texts and you wrote the emails and you sat in the meetings and you did your work. You already took care of the dogs and the cat. You already took care of people at work. If you have a job where you're taking care of people, you've already poured energy into everybody else's stuff. You've already wasted time, like just mindlessly watching things. How about before you climb into bed, instead of constantly giving more of your attention, more of your energy to your phone or to the TV or to somebody's drama, what if you turned back to yourself? What if you gave yourself something that you haven't had all day, which is just time? I mean, really stop and think about this, because I'm sure your life feels a lot like mine. Like, when you wake up in the morning, that's a moment of peace and power. And you're in control of what you're thinking about and your attention in the morning for whatever period of time that you have until you look at the phone or you look at the TV. Like, you control those first 5 to 20 minutes first thing in the morning. But the second you give it to your phone or to a TV, you literally just turned everything that you got, your brain, your attention, your heart, your energy, to the world. And you're not going to get it back until this moment, right here, right now, every evening. And I say you deserve at least 15 minutes of time back. This is time you could read a book. This is time you could roll out a yoga mat and do a quick stretch. This is time where you could meditate. You could journal. You could just, after you've turned off the lights and you've kind of cleaned up the mess so you can start tomorrow fresh and you've made a few things a little bit easier, you could just sit in gratitude that you did that for yourself. You could ask yourself what went well today. That's a prompt that we learned from the amazing expert on brain and brain health, Dr. Daniel Amen. One of the things that I love to do in these 5 minutes is I run a bath. Like when I start that wind down, I turn the bath on and then I go and I clean up the mess in the kitchen and I start to wind down the house and lock the doors and turn on the alarm and put the dogs, in the mud room and all that stuff while the bath is running. And all the while I'm making things easier. This takes me 5-10 minutes tops. And by the time I get in my bedroom, the bath is drawn. These are my 5 minutes. Some nights I'll make a cup of tea and I'll put a scoop of magnesium in it, cup of mint tea, magnesium. I love this time. And here's one thing that I've noticed. If I have succumbed to decision fatigue and I have engaged in revenge bedtime procrastination and I have avoided going to bed because I feel like I deserve time, do you know what I don't do? I don't take time for myself. Like it's a lie to believe that scrolling mindlessly is actually time for you. It's a lie that you tell yourself that slumping on the couch and having a phone in your hand while you're flipping and watching trailers is somehow time for you. No, that's more time that you're giving your attention to other things. These 5 minutes are about turning back to yourself. And here's what I've noticed is that when you start to just reflexively make time for yourself, whether you're going to run a bath or make a cup of tea, or you're going to journal at night, or you're going to have a book that you read, you know what you're less likely to do? You're less likely to be turning your attention to your phone or binge watching TV. The other thing that happens when you turn to yourself, this is what Dr. Rebecca Robbins calls a wind down routine, is now you're slowing yourself down and you're activating what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. You're basically signaling to your body, okay, just like we're turning off the lights and we're locking the door and we're clearing off the counters and we're emptying out the sink and we're doing some simple things to make my day go better tomorrow, to take care of myself. All of those actions signal, hey body, hey mind, hey nervous system, you don't have to be in a state of fight or flight right now. You don't have to be on edge. You don't have to be bracing or escaping. It's safe. We're going to rest now. Like this whole little routine, which you can do on autopilot, exhausted, with zero gas in the tank, is also a way to signal to your body that, wow, I do deserve rest. I do deserve this quiet. Not everything in my life has to be so stimulating. In fact, I don't want it to be. And you want to know something cool that happens over time? That 5 minutes that you spend soaking in a bath becomes 10. And then it becomes 20 minutes because you've made a cup of tea ahead of time. And then suddenly you've also bought a good book. And now instead of looking at your phone, you've read a little, you've made your tea. You're now part of your wind down routine as you're cleaning up today's messes to set yourself up for tomorrow, and you're making things easier, and you're now turning back to yourself. Like your whole evening, and are you getting this, is actually you turning back to yourself. It is you saying to yourself with every small little move that you make in this tiny little 5-step routine, I matter. My rest matters. Sleep matters. Feeling good matters. And I've already given enough of myself to the world. No more. No more. I'm going to give myself that time because I deserve it. And you're going to feel different. Like I literally just doing this routine once and I'm done with the procrastination at night. You're going to feel so empowered. And so that brings me to step number 5. And this is the final step. I want you to tuck your phone in before you tuck yourself in. Okay. I could spend an entire episode. In fact, we could do dozens and dozens and dozens of conversations about the phone and how it's impacting your sleep. But I'm not going to go all science on you. I'm going to appeal to your wisdom, to what you know to be true. And I am going to appeal to your better nature and your ability to truly take care of yourself. And so here's the thing. You wouldn't let your toddler sleep with an iPad in their bed. At least I hope you wouldn't. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, I think we all know that a toddler wouldn't be able to help themselves, right? They'd be checking it. Well, we're all a toddler when it comes to the phone. And so you can't let yourself sleep with your phone. Like, this is a massive game changer. And the reason why I'm going to say it needs to be a step in your routine is because just remember, you are also at the end of the day struggling with decision fatigue. That means you are already more impulsive. You already are struggling with indecision. This is why every one of us climbs in the bed and we're like, I shouldn't look at my phone. And then boom, you are indecisive about it. So you look at your phone. You know you should put it away, but you avoid putting it away. You have decision fatigue. This is not your fault, which is why you need to tuck your phone in before you tuck yourself in. And for me, what does this mean? It means I tuck my phone into the bathroom. I cannot have it next to me. I can't. I'm too impulsive. I am prone to procrastinating. I will avoid doing what's right for me. If I were an alcoholic, I would not have a Manhattan next to me at bed. If I had a cocaine problem, I would not have an 8-ball sitting right there. And I know myself and I know you. And at this moment, you are peak decision fatigue. And if you actually care about yourself, you will tuck your phone in before you tuck yourself in. And for me, that meant learning how to plug that thing into the bathroom, even though it felt like I was going through massive withdrawal and something terrible was going to happen. And what if this and what if that? This is the single biggest game changer when it comes to your evenings and your ability to sleep and your ability to wake up tomorrow and have the day actually work for you and to have a fighting chance that you're going to make decisions that empower you first thing in the morning instead of yet again turning your most precious asset, which is your attention and your energy, to the phone and to the world around you. Like, they get it all day long. That's why we have to have boundaries between the world and actually ourselves and what's good for us. And so I plug mine into the bathroom because A, I can't reach for it in bed. B, I set my alarm on the phone. And that means when the alarm rings, I'm not laying in bed and rotting in bed and avoiding getting out of bed. I'm getting up to go turn the alarm off on the phone. And number 3, there's so much research around this, aside just from what we're talking about with decision fatigue and you being more prone to impulsivity and more prone to avoid going to bed and getting the sleep that you need because you feel like you deserve time to hang out. The time to hang out is not at night when you need sleep. And there's other reasons why this matters. I mean, and you've heard all of this. The blue light from your phone, it suppresses melatonin. The notifications, the doom scrolling, the zzz, the zzz, the zzz, the lights that come up, it keeps your brain active because your brain is waiting for another notification. It's looking for it, which what makes it harder to fall asleep. And even just having your phone near you affects the quality of your sleep. I mean, the science around this is bananas. The light at night is part of the reason why so many of you don't get enough sleep. Researchers have actually linked shortened sleep cycles to increased risk for depression, as well as diabetes, cardiovascular problems. This is research that was published in Harvard Health Publishing. I mean, here's the bottom line. I want you to find a new bed to tuck your phone into, and it can't be your bedside table. Charge it in the kitchen, charge it in the bathroom, charge it across the room from you, or charge it where my husband charges his phone, in the closet at night with the door closed. Because that will give you the chance to get the sleep you deserve. And again, I want you to embrace the truth of where we started, okay? The fact is, you and I live in a moment in time where the world is engineered and designed on purpose to steal your time, your energy, and your attention. All day long, you are giving yourself to work, to people you care about, to your kids, to your friends, to your classmates, to your teachers. You are pouring your brain into solving projects, to answering texts, to responding to emails. Like, it's unbelievable how much you do in a day. unbelievable. And I want you to give yourself credit for that. And I also want you to understand that when you come home and you're tired and you're exhausted and you just want to collapse and quote, not think, this is normal. That's exactly how you should feel in a world where you're working very hard and you're giving it your all and you're trying to show up, and you're doing a great job, by the way. You are doing a great job giving it all to the world. And I want to remind you that you deserve that attention and that effort back to yourself. And even though I get it, like it is so easy to doom scroll, it is so tempting to collapse on the couch and just be impulsive and avoidant and make decisions that really kind of screw yourself over. I'm here to tell you, you deserve more. And nobody's going to change this for you. In fact, it's just going to get worse, honestly. The more the headlines are scary, the more you have problems in your life, the more overwhelmed you are at work, the worse it gets at night in terms of staying up too late and avoiding going to bed and continuing to look at your phone or TV. The worse it's going to get. And you now know why. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not an idiot. I am struggling with decision fatigue. Oh, wait a minute. I've already poured everything into everybody else. So I do have to claw back this time, both at night and first thing in the morning. This makes a lot of sense. Oh, wait a minute. The second that I look at my phone or I turn on the TV, I've now put the phone and the TV and everything on it in front of my sanity and my rest and my peace. Oh, wow. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And so now that you know what's at play, and you know that there is a situation that is beyond it's not your fault. This is just the way life is right now. But more importantly, when you accept that reality, you now get to choose. You get to choose whether or not you're going to succumb to the pressures and the programming of the modern world, or if you're going to take your evenings and your sanity back. And the way that I've done it, and the way that I keep coming back to it, and the way that you're going to do it tonight is very simple. Right now, pick your bedtime. You're going to work backward from the wake up time. Is it 6 a.m.? Is it 7 a.m.? Is it 8 a.m.? When do you want to get up? Then let's work backward, and you need 9 hours in bed in order to get 8 hours of sleep. I love this. And it is going to be earlier than you think it is. For me, it is 9 p.m. Eastern because I have a great morning if I get up at 6 a.m. And that means I got to basically be hitting the bed around 9 to ensure that I get 8 hours of sleep. Second thing that you're going to do, and I love this because, again, you do this when you're tired. You do this. This is part of the lock the door, turn off the lights, and start to wind down the day. You're just going to clean up today's messes so you can start tomorrow fresh. This is not a deep clean. This is literally bare minimum, people. We're throwing the scissors in the drawer. We are putting the backpacks by the door. We're hanging up the coats. We are getting rid of the dishes in the sink and either washing them or sticking them in the dish. We're clearing off the counter. That's all you're doing. So you get to wake up fresh tomorrow. How cool is that? As you're doing that, find small ways to set yourself up for success tomorrow by making whatever you need to do in the morning easier. Consolidate your stuff for work. Put your keys right on top. Pack your lunch. You can do that mindlessly. Throw your exercise clothes on the floor. Find the dog leash and the dog bags. Like, you're literally half asleep while you're doing this. That's why this is so cool, because that means you don't actually have to exert any energy tomorrow. You've just made things easier. If you love a cup of coffee first thing, grind the coffee, have the coffee maker ready to go. If you got a timer on it, set the timer. Boom! You just made the morning easy. You removed one more decision and you reserved your brain power in the morning for something more important. Now, the fourth step, 5 minutes for you. Acknowledge the fact that you gave it all as best you could to everybody else today. And now, as you are winding down the day, make part of your wind down routine 5 minutes for you. That's it. A bath, cup of tea, journal. Simply, as you're getting undressed, ask yourself, what went well today? Just something that's for you. Stretch. Could be reading a book to your kids before they go to bed. You know, you're kind of just being present with them, snuggling. 5 minutes for you. For me, it's a bath. Always a bath, always a bath, always a bath. And then finally, the fifth step in this incredibly simple evening routine for when the world just makes you feel weary and overwhelmed and tired. Tuck your phone in before you tuck yourself in. This is going to be the hardest one. And I get it. And here's one final thing. If you're somebody that's worried about your kids or work being able to reach you, no problem. Just text everybody. In fact, you could share this episode with them and say, hey, I just listened to this thing and I am going to try getting a better night's sleep. I'm going to try this evening routine. And because of what I've just learned, I want you to know something. If you have an emergency, you can still reach me in the middle of the night. Just call me. Don't text me because I'm going to be tucking my phone into the bathroom, so I won't be reading the text till the morning. But if you actually need me, call me and I'll leave the ringer on. Boom. Notifications off, ringer on. Then you can tuck your phone in knowing that if somebody needs you, they'll call you. And you, my friend, can tuck yourself in and actually get the sleep you deserve. How cool is that? I'm really excited for you. I'm really excited to see how you use this. I'm excited to see how this shifts something in you. You know, my main desire in talking through this with you is not to make anybody wrong, certainly not to make myself wrong. I know I'm working really hard right now, and I just noticed, wow, I'm sort of in this slump at night. And it's time to remind myself of what I know to be true. And I thought, since I'm really been struggling with this and I needed this reminder, I just figured you probably needed this reminder too, and so do the people that you love. So I want to thank you for being here with me. I want to thank you for choosing to listen to something that will really help you take your evenings and your sanity back. 1 5 little step routine, one night at a time. This works. You can do it, and you deserve to have your evenings. You deserve to wake up and feel refreshed and to feel like you don't have to do a million things because you've done these 5 simple things. And I promise you, you try it for a couple nights and you're going to feel like a whole new you. In fact, I think you're going to feel like yourself again. Alrighty. In case nobody else tells you, I wanted to be sure to tell you that I love you. And what does that mean? That means love for me is 2 things. It's just simply admiring something in someone, and consideration, having them in mind. And so I say I love you because I admire the fact that even when you don't have time, you're finding time to listen to a podcast or to watch it on YouTube that could actually help you create a better life. And I admire that about you. And I always have you in mind when I'm thinking about what we're going to talk about, because I want to make sure that this is worth your time. And I know the conversation today is. And so I love you for that. And I believe in you. And I believe in your ability to take these 5 steps and try them out for a couple nights and see how it changes how you feel. It changes how you sleep, and it changes how you wake up. And that, my friend, is going to change your life. Alrighty. I'll be waiting for you in the very next episode. I'll be there to welcome you in the moment you hit play. I'll see you there. And for you, thank you for being here with me all the way to the end on YouTube. I love you for being here. I am constantly thinking about ways that our team can make videos and content and bring you experts that will truly help you change your life. And so I want to thank you for spending time watching this. And also, my goal is to make sure that 50% of the people that watch this channel are subscribers. It's free to subscribe. You just hit the button. And it tells me and our team that you really value these videos, that you value access to world-class experts, and it supports us in continuing to bring you the Mel Robbins podcast and more cool stuff that's coming up here on YouTube that I cannot wait for you to see. And so thank you for doing that. And I know you're thinking, already, I loved this. Now what? I think you're going to love this video next. And the second you hit play, I will be waiting to welcome you in. I'll see you there.